This is the New Eden update for Wednesday, March 30th, 2016. I'm Wiggles, and here is a roundup of a few stories from around New Eden. Going forward, on a personal note, until my real life calms down a little bit and I can get things sorted, I'm going to be putting the updates out on a Monday, Wednesday and Friday unless otherwise needed. Any feedback, as always, let me know. War is here! The first cracks in the Imperium have started to widen. CO2 have backstabbed their former allies. It's all going New Eden, apparently. The Mittani.com, EveNews24 and Crossing Zebras are reporting on the face of that CO2 have left the Imperium. The Mittani.com had this to say. Circle of Two announced on Reddit today that they are resetting the standings with Goonswarm Federation and the rest of the Imperium. The announcement came at the end of a 5-hour engagement in which the combined Imperium forces lost over 240 billion ISK while defending a CO2 iHub. Circle of Two suffered 40 billion ISK of the losses, as well as the destruction of the iHub, while the rest of the Imperium took the other 200 billion plus, including the losses of mostly of 2 Machariel fleets, a Proteus fleet, and at least 1 combined FCON Razor Sleipnir fleet. The decision to reset the Imperium was made according to Senior CO2 FC Sebastian St. Frusican, sorry I butchered a name there, during an EU morning meeting of Senior CO2 leadership before the battle took place. This decision may have been a pivotal factor in the battle, as no Cynojammers were online in any of the systems in the targeted constellation. Taking advantage of this, Pandemic Legion and NC Dot used triage carriers to win iHub and command nodes, while Imperium fleets were pinned down in the combination of time dilation, interdictor bubbles. This also explains the sudden disappearance of the jump bridges in the constellations, as PL and NC Dot have been pushing there for major super capital engagements. It seems clear at this time the Imperium had committed super capitals to the fight, and Circle of Two supers would have come into the battle as a 5th column and engage the Imperium from behind. EveNews24 had this to say. Towards the end of 2015, the CFC had seemed invincible and even attempted to immortalise their legacy with an ill-planned, expensive Kickstarter for a book detailing their past successes evicting Test Alliance, please ignore, from Fountain. They're campaigning to Lowsec in order to force the various entities there to pay them a tribute and take Moon assets was also just announced. It was during this period that they came to be obvious to several people, despite that the CFC's level of strength, they had no chance to hold all their territory in a full multi-front war. So far from the beginning to the eager traitor that Mittens wants to spin the situation, as CO2 has made plans to stand and fight with its close allies, who instead have suffered from behind CO2's lines. I personally think that CO2 hoped it could survive the invading forces alongside Bastion Lorne, as Goonswarm would eventually lose control over the other alliances. Though perhaps they thought the CFC would naturally realise its limitations and cease their dominating attitude towards their coalition members. CO2 could maintain their relationship with their allies as they cultivated and projected, while also not having to deal with the likes of Mittani and Scion. Their humiliating demands. When your coalition puts you in a situation such as CO2, you have 2 choices: betray your own members or act as a meat shield. Crossing Zebras had the following to say. This is a long-held theory in any coalition that remains king of the hill for a substantial length of time and is eventually brought to its knees. Typically, this is down to an internal atrophy, and most famously evidenced by the collapse of the Northern Coalition, despite amassing an insurmountable riches and numbers. There can be no doubt that the Imperium had a far more robust internal organisation than the NC, or than the old NC ever had, but with 40,000 plus members, it was inevitable that entities would ally in an attempt to take down an entity that was perceived correct or otherwise to become bloated. Undoubtedly, there is a degree of damage control here, as in a completely understandable given the circumstances. CO2 cite mismanagement from the wider Imperium, and in particular Corps Diplomatique, for their lingering dissatisfaction with the life in the coalition. On the other hand, it would appear that the Imperium leadership were aware of the growing schism between CO2 and the rest of the coalition. At the time of writing this, we do not know what their long-term plans for CO2 are, but an educated guess would suggest them fighting their former alliance mates on the side of the MBC. On reading the Tweet Fleet Slack, MBC forces are clearly playing for this singular fight over an irrelevant timer to be a far greater significance than that is of itself. But for the moment, the Imperium are ceding both in regions and manpower, and many opposing alliances in EVE right now smell blood in the water. What I personally do know is that on this past week's This Week in New Eden, I did say that what if CO2 and another few others of the alliances that were in the Imperium left? Not saying that I called it, but called it! Yes. Elsewhere in EVE-related content, new blog posts out from Rick Javix and Wilhelm Arcturus. New podcasts are out from the Cap Stable crew with a Cap Booster with an interview with a judge from CO2 and a Jeff Raider show. Also, just to get you a reminder, a new 07 show is live tomorrow on Twitch from 2000 GMT. Plex prices in the Forge region today are registering an average trading price of 1,074,000,000 ISK so far, which is down 5 million from yesterday's closing average of 1,079,000,000. The top buy order right now in JITA is 1,068,000,000, while you could sell to the market, you could buy from the market at 1,084,000,000. Skillet extractors are trading at 252 million, which is up 1 mil from yesterday's closing, down 1 mil from yesterday's closing average of 253. They are starting on the market for 245, or you can purchase them for 249 million. Skill injectors, on the other hand, are trading at 641 million ISK, which is on par from yesterday's average. You can sell to the market at 635 million ISK, and you can buy them off the market at a current price of 644. Thank you to everyone who's chosen to support this show on Patreon and decided they get some value from what I do here and decided to give a little bit back. You can go to patreon.com/wiggles to find out about how you can support the show via Patreon. Now, I know not everyone can understand or even afford to give money, but you know what? If you do get some value out of it and you don't really want to give some money, tell some friends about the show, or give us a review on iTunes or your favourite podcaster catcher thing. You can find out about all the shows, all the ways to support this show on newedenupdate.com/support. And as you can see, we now do broadcast live on Twitch and YouTube while we record it for the show, for the podcast. So let me know what you think by sending me an email, feedback@newedenupdate.com. You can also put a comment in the show blog, which is newedenupdate.com, or you could even send us a tweet if you're on the old Twitter @newedenupdate. And as I've said many times before, you can always check out all the latest headlines, podcasts, blog posts, and all the other information that you can find over on TotalEve.com, the sister site that I run to help do this thing here because it's easier. This has been the New Eden Update for Wednesday, March 30th, 2016. We'll be back on Friday. I'm Wiggles, and thank you for listening or watching.